And welcome back to Hannity. Now, while talk over potential gun control legislation continues in the wake of the Newtown school shooting tragedy, New York Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo is taking this to a whole new level. Now, during a radio interview last week, Governor Cuomo said he will consider all options when it comes to gun control legislation, including confiscation. Listen to this.
Well, you could say, well, confiscation could be an option, right?
Yeah.
Sale.
We've never done that before,
right.
I don't think.
Mandatory sale to the state could be an option.
That's a form of confiscation.
Right. Permitting could be an option.
Yeah.
Keep your gun but permit it. So there are a number of options.
Now, if lawmakers are willing to confiscate certain guns from law-abiding citizens, what else are they willing to do? Here now with reaction is nationally syndicated columnist and author Michelle Malkin is back with us. Michelle, welcome back. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, so when you hear a governor talk about confiscation, and then you look at, for example, Senator Feinstein's proposed legislation, assault weapons ban, and it also includes pistols with magazines, this is an all-out attack against the Second Amendment and gun owners' rights. I want to get your reaction to his statement and her legislation.
You bet. Well, I think we owe Governor Cuomo some thanks, at least for being honest or having a momentary lapse of candor here and highlighting and exposing the true agenda of these gun grabbers. This is not about honoring the Newtown victims or doing anything practical to try and prevent the next mass shooting and massacre and horrific event like we had there. This is another cynical exercise in futility and political exploitation of a bloody tragedy. And it gives lie to the longtime denial of so many of these anti-Second Amendment groups who are always trying to reassure law-abiding gun owners that no, 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 we're not going after your guns. You're being paranoid. You can actually go back and look at the New York Times on August 7th, 2012, and you'll find a smug liberal op-ed writer who trashes the NRA and gun owners for warning about what exactly this kind of confiscation scheme that Andrew Cuomo is spelling out. And you're absolutely right to point out and pair this flotation of this proposal along with what's now coming down the pike on Capitol Hill, because it's not just about confiscation. It's not just about a registration scheme that would demonize and criminalize the behavior of law-abiding gun owners. It's also about this quote-unquote mandatory sale or buyback program that both Feinstein and Cuomo have been pushing for a long time. And remember that the reintroduction of the assault weapons ban, quote-unquote, is something that Dianne Feinstein had in the works in the immediate aftermath of the election, even before the Newtown massacre occurred.
You know something, Michelle, what really strikes me is it's very interesting. We protect, and rightly so, our presidents, our politicians, Hollywood stars. They all have armed guards protecting them. We protect our money with armed guards. But when anybody mentions maybe protecting children in our school system with armed guards, they're viewed as extremists. You mentioned exploiting a tragedy here. Is there any law that could have been passed that would have prevented this from happening? Anything you can think of?
Well, look, Connecticut already had a so-called assault weapons ban, and it didn't stop that evil monster from doing what he did. These kind of massively restrictive gun control laws certainly don't stop the bloodshed in Obama's Chicago, which we talked about last week, or in Washington, D.C., where so many citizens are not protected by armed guards the way that the privileged elites on Capitol Hill or the privileged elites among so many in the liberal media who are crusading for these gun control laws enjoy. And there's this, I think what you're getting at, and many of us have pointed to, is this hypocrisy and double standard among those who have a concealed weapon for me but not for thee agenda. And that includes people like Dianne Feinstein, who herself was a concealed carry holder when she was in San Francisco, and the likes of Chuck Schumer and Jay Rockefeller, who owned an AR-15, and Michael Moore and so many of these elites. And now we have the demonization of people who suggest that, well, maybe it should be local school districts and communities that take matters into their own hands. And I pointed to a great example here in my home state of Colorado, in Westcliff, Colorado, where a local city councilman wrote me and told me about a sheriff's outreach program to citizen volunteers who have been protecting their local school district for 10 years now, getting training and working jointly with the sheriff's departments. I think that Andrew Cuomo maybe ought to talk to his brother Chris Cuomo, who himself, a member of that liberal Democratic family, has also endorsed the idea of armed guards in school districts. There are so many other things that do not infringe upon liberty or the Second Amendment that could go much further along towards preventing the next mass tragedy than what they're proposing now.
And by the way, Rahm Emanuel's kids are protected in a school with armed guards. And the president jokingly one day said, I ran so I could have men with guns around my daughter, which, by the way, he rightly has. We've got to protect our presidents and our politicians. Let me ask you about Sam Donaldson's comments. He was speaking about Tea Party members. It's not your country anymore. He actually said these words, and I want to get your reaction to this.
The minorities reelected President Obama, but I'm going with Caddy. It was the Tea Party and the thinking of the Tea Party and people like that that are driving the Republicans out of contention as a national party. You cannot win nationally if you don't know something about the way the country's changed. And the Tea Party seems to think the country can go back 25 or 30 years. The greatest slogan that I hated during this last campaign was, we want to take back our country. Guys, it's not your country anymore. It's our country, and you're part of it. But that thinking is going to defeat Republicans nationally if they don't get rid of it.
There you go, the new tone and civility. I think this guy has been living in the D.C. bubble way too long and probably hitting the sauce too much. It's part of that long-time demonization of the Tea Party and the divisiveness of people who disagree with so many millions of people out there who believe and adhere to the same principles that the Founding Fathers did. And here again, I think it's of a piece, the demonization of people who believe in the Second Amendment, the demonization of people who believe in limited government and a government that represents we the people and not we the elites. I really think that it's archaic and dinosaur-like of folks like Sam Donaldson, who have long been out of power. I mean, we broke the liberal media monopoly years ago, and this is really their death throw call, not ours.
All right,
Thanks,
Michelle
Sam.
Malkin, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Happy New Year.
You bet.
That is all the time we have left.